There are places that do not need warning signs. They do not need barbed wire. They do not need a rusted board that says, "Do not go any farther." All it takes is standing at the edge of the road, staring into the dark line of trees ahead, and somehow your body understands. Something in that forest does not want to be awakened. On Long Island, New York, people call that place Mount Misery. By day, it is only a low wooded area near West Hills and Cold Spring Harbor. There are walking trails, riding paths, quiet homes hidden behind old trees, curving roads that vanish beneath heavy branches. But after sunset, everything changes. No one knows exactly when the change begins. Some say it began when the first people who lived on that land learned to avoid it. Some say it began with exhausted travelers climbing the hill by horse and wagon, giving the place its miserable name. Some say it began with an old fire, a missing child, a woman in white, a car that dies in the middle of the road, or a slow knocking sound from inside a hollow tree. For me, it began with a voice coming through a dead walkie-talkie. And it said, "They're here. Help me. Please. Let me out." Mount Misery Road is a road and wooded area located inside West Hills County Park in Huntington, Long Island, New York. It is often linked with local history and supernatural folklore. The area is commonly mentioned alongside stories about Sweet Hollow Road, forest trails, unusual sounds, shadowy figures, and strange equipment failures. One detail that fits this story especially well is a 2025 article about a Long Island paranormal investigation group. According to that article, the group said they once captured a voice over a walkie-talkie in the Mount Misery area, saying words similar to, "They're here. Help me out. Please, let me out." The same article also mentioned local claims about malfunctioning equipment, a sulfur-like smell, dark figures, and dogs reacting strangely in the area. Some common legends, including the story of an asylum or mental hospital on Mount Misery, are considered by local sources to be difficult to verify, and in some cases to have little or almost no clear historical basis. My name is Nora Vu. I am not a psychic. I am not a ghost hunter. And I am definitely not the kind of person who walks into the woods at midnight just to prove that ghosts are real. I work part-time as an audio cleanup technician for a small company in Queens. My job is simple. I clean bad recordings, static in podcasts, wind in street interviews, distorted phone calls, wedding videos where the microphone rubs against someone's jacket. Sometimes security camera audio from homeowners who want to know whether the noise in their kitchen was a rat or a person. I know noise. Noise has a shape. It is like dust on glass. If you know how to wipe it away, whatever is hidden underneath begins to appear. But the audio file I received on a Tuesday night in October was not like anything I had ever cleaned before. The man who sent it was named Eddie Callahan. He was in his 50s, lived in Huntington, and introduced himself as part of a small paranormal investigation group on Long Island. His voice on the phone was calm, but it had the kind of calm that comes from not sleeping for several nights. He said, "Ms. Vu, I do not need you to believe in ghosts. I just need you to do one technical job." I said, "I'm listening. I need you to isolate a voice from a walkie-talkie recording." What kind of walkie-talkie? An old Motorola, recorded in the woods. Which woods? The line went quiet for a moment. Then he said, Mount Misery. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the name took me back to high school. Kids used to whisper about Mount Misery and Sweet Hollow Road. They said that if you parked under a certain bridge, left the car in neutral, and waited, invisible hands would push you forward. They said tiny handprints would appear on the glass. They said if you walked too far into the trees, someone behind you would call your name. I had never believed any of it. But I had also never gone there at night. Eddie sent the file right after the call. The file name was short. Site 2, raw, 3:17 a.m. I put on my headphones, opened the software, watched the waveform appear on the screen. 3 minutes and 12 seconds. At first, there was only wind. Crickets somewhere far away. Footsteps crushing dry leaves. Then a man whispered, "Recorder on." A soft click followed, like a walkie-talkie catching a signal. Then came a long, cracked, distorted sound. I raised the gain, reduced the hiss, cut the low-end rumble, filtered out the wind, and when I played it back, I heard it. I could not tell if the voice was male or female, old or young. It sounded as if it had been forced through water, through dirt, through a thick wall. There, I stopped the file, rewound it, played it again. They're here. My hand left the mouse. I stared at the screen. A cold line moved down the back of my neck. Not because the words themselves were terrifying, but because after those words, there was another sound, very faint, very thin, like fingernails scratching wood. Then the voice continued. "Help me." A pause. "Please." A longer pause. "Let me out." I took off the headphones. My apartment in Queens was quiet. My mother was asleep in the next room. Outside the window, cars moved along the street. A horn sounded far away. A pipe knocked inside the wall. Normal sounds. Sounds that belonged to a living city. But the voice stayed in my head. Not "help me." Not "please." Let me out. Because people only say that when they are trapped. Eddie called again the next morning. "You heard it, didn't you?" "I heard it." "Can you clean it up?" "Yes, but I need context." He sighed. "We recorded it at Site 2. "What is Site 2? "A point in the woods. We named our locations for the investigation. It's not an official name." "Was anyone else nearby?" "No, at least we didn't see anyone." "Could it have been another radio signal?" "Maybe, but did you listen to the end?" I looked at the file on my screen. "What end?" "After the 3-minute mark. The part that sounds like plain static." I had not listened carefully to that part. The night before, I had stopped after the voice said, "Let me out." I opened the file again and moved to 3 minutes and 1 second. At first, there was only static. Then Eddie's voice in the recording said, "Did anyone copy that?" Another voice answered, "Negative." Then the radio crackled. A tiny sound slipped through the static. I could not make it out. I filtered more, raised the human voice frequencies, lowered the wind, stretched the audio just enough to hear the words underneath. A whisper emerged. It was not English. It was Vietnamese.
Do not let it know you can hear.
I sat completely still in front of the monitor. Eddie said through the phone, "Ms. Vu." I did not answer. "What did you hear?" I swallowed. "You said no one in your group speaks Vietnamese?" "No." No one had a phone playing? No video? No conversation? No. Everyone was silent at that moment. I stared at the waveform, at the strip of static that should have meant nothing. Then I listened to the whisper one more time. This time it was clearer. "Do not let it know you can hear." I closed the file, because the voice sounded like my mother. My mother's name is Lon. She came to the United States when she was 27. She worked in nail salons, restaurant kitchens, laundromats, and any place that would pay enough to raise me after my father disappeared. I used the word disappeared because there is no better word. My father, Pham Minh Quang, vanished in the fall of 2006. I was 12. He was a delivery driver for a small Asian grocery store in Hicksville. That night, he took one final delivery to Huntington. It was a small order: rice, soy sauce, noodles, and a few bags of vegetables. According to the receipt, the address was somewhere near West Hills. He never came home. The truck was found 2 days later on a side road near the edge of the park. The doors were locked. The delivery was still inside. His phone was dead under the passenger seat. No blood. No sign of a struggle. No body. The police said he might have gotten lost in the woods, or walked away from his life because of money problems. My mother never believed that. She searched for him for months. Flyers, phone calls, gas stations, stores, houses near the park, anyone who might have seen him. Only one elderly woman near Mount Misery Road said anything strange. Around 11 that night, she heard a man knock on her front door. 3 knocks. Slow. Polite. When she opened the door, no one was on the porch. But on the welcome mat, there was a bag of rice. The same brand my father had been carrying that night. After that, my mother never said the words Mount Misery in front of me again. She only said, "Some places swallow people, Nora. Not because they are hungry, because you answered when they called." I used to think that was grief speaking, until I heard her voice inside Eddie's recording. I did not tell Eddie about my father. I only said I needed more data. He sent me 3 more files. The first was a walkie-talkie recording from the year before. The second was audio from a recorder left in the woods, mostly leaves and wind. The third was a black infrared video, 19 minutes long. I did not care about the image. I extracted the audio. There was no voice in the first file. In the second file, around minute 8, someone breathed very close to the microphone. They did not speak. They only breathed. But in the third file, I found something that made me get up and lock my apartment door. 12:44, between the insects and the wind, there was a telephone ring. An old ring. Not a modern ringtone. A landline from the 90s. Then someone picked up. A man's voice said softly,
Fam residence.
I could not breathe. That was how my father answered the phone at home. Every evening, when the landline rang, he would pick it up and say those words. Fam residence. I replayed it 10 times, 20 times. There was no mistake. It was my father's voice. From a recording made in the woods at Mount Misery, 19 years after he vanished. That night, I did not sleep. At 3:17 a.m., my phone vibrated. No caller ID. I stared at the screen for a long time. I did not answer. The phone stopped ringing. 1 minute later, I received a voicemail. I played it on speaker. At first, there was static, then wind, then a distorted voice.
They're here.
I stepped back.
Help me.
I wanted to turn it off, but my fingers would not move. Please. Then came the sound of fingernails scratching wood. Let me out. After that, my father spoke. Very close, as if he were standing right behind me. Nora. I spun around. No one was there. The voicemail continued. If you can hear this. His breath trembled. Do not go to Mount Misery. Of course, I went. People always do the most foolish thing when the dead tell them not to. I told my mother I had to meet a client on Long Island. She looked at me for a long time, as if she already knew. Before I left, she called my name. Nora. I turned around. She stood in her bedroom doorway, her gray hair loose around her face, both hands gripping the edge of her sweater. What did you hear? I said nothing. Her eyes filled with tears. I have been waiting for this day for 19 years. My heart slowed. You knew. She nodded. Your father heard it too, before he disappeared. Heard what? His mother's voice. My grandmother died before I was born. My father almost never spoke about her. A week before he vanished, your father got a call. No number. There was only his mother crying on the phone. She said she was locked in a dark room. She begged him to come open the door. Why didn't you call the police? I thought he was breaking down. I thought he missed her. I thought it was a bad connection. She was crying now, but her voice stayed even. The night he disappeared, he left a note. What note? She went into her room, opened a drawer, and took out an old envelope. Inside was a yellowed piece of paper. My father's handwriting. I am only going to look. If I do not come back, do not let Nora answer the phone. I read the line again and again. Do not let Nora answer the phone. I looked up. You hid this from me for 19 years? If I told you, you would have gone looking. He disappeared. I had a right to know. I already lost my husband. She looked straight at me. I did not want to lose my daughter. I held the note in my shaking hand. Did you ever go there? My mother did not answer. The answer was inside that silence. What did you see? She whispered, I saw your father. Where? In the woods. Was he alive? She closed her eyes. I saw him standing behind a tree. He was calling me, but his mouth was not moving. The room became too quiet. What did you do? I ran. You left him there? She looked as if I had slapped her. I regretted the words the moment I said them, but I could not take them back. My mother stopped crying. She only said, "No, I saved you." I drove to Huntington the next afternoon. October on Long Island can look deceptively beautiful. Trees glowing red and gold. Quiet houses, clean roads, signs for parks, schools, and churches. If you did not know the stories, you might believe nothing bad could happen there. I met Eddie at a small diner near Jericho Turnpike. He arrived with another man named Gabe Miller. Gabe was about 40, wearing an old park jacket. His hands were rough, and his eyes looked like he had not slept in years. Eddie said Gabe did maintenance work on private properties around West Hills and had grown up near Mount Misery. Gabe shook my hand. "You're the audio person?" "I'm the person who heard something she shouldn't have." Gabe did not smile. "Then you're in the story now." I asked, "Do you believe there are ghosts there?" Gabe looked into his coffee. "I believe some places hold on to sound." Eddie opened a laptop and showed me a satellite map. He pointed at a wooded area between the roads. "This is where we recorded it. Site 2. I looked at the marker. It was not as deep in the forest as I had imagined. It was close enough to the road to feel possible. "What is there?" I asked. Gabe answered, "An old stone foundation, maybe a house, maybe a storage cellar. Nobody knows for sure. Kids call it the asylum ruin, but that's just a legend." Eddie said, "The strange part is what happens to equipment there. Batteries drain, compasses spin, walkie-talkies catch voices." "What frequency?" I asked. "Not a fixed one. Could be interference, power lines, a transmitter, trucks nearby." Gabe looked at me. "You want a normal explanation?" "Yes." "Then do not go in after dark." "Why?" "Because during the day, the woods let you think you're smart. At night, they prove you wrong." Eddie said, "We won't force you to go in. We just need help identifying the voice." "I already identified it." "Who was it?" I looked through the diner window. Outside, a yellow school bus rolled past. For 1 second, I thought I saw small hands pressed against the back glass. I blinked. Nothing was there. I said, "My father." We decided to enter the woods before sunset. I knew it was a foolish decision. But most decisions that lead people into tragedy do not look foolish at first. They look like responsibility, like love, like the last possible chance. Eddie carried walkie-talkies, recorders, an infrared camera, and flashlights. Gabe carried a small backpack, rope, a multi-tool, water, and a first aid kit. I carried my phone, headphones, a small recorder, and my father's note. When we stepped onto the trail, the air changed almost at once. Outside the woods, we could still hear traffic. Inside the woods, the traffic was gone. Not faded. Gone. As if someone had closed an invisible door behind us. Dry leaves cracked under our feet. Gray tree trunks stood on either side. The late light filtered through the canopy in cold yellow bands. Eddie walked ahead, constantly checking his meters. Gabe stayed behind us. I walked in the middle. After about 10 minutes, Eddie's radio crackled. He stopped. Eddie to base. Radio check. No reply. Only clicking. Click. 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 Then a child giggled. Eddie went pale. Did you hear that? I nodded. Gabe said, "Do not answer." Eddie looked at him. It's just a kid. In these woods, anything that sounds like a kid should never be answered. The laughter stopped. The radio went silent. We kept walking. 5 minutes later, the smell arrived. At first, it was faint, rotten eggs, then stronger, sulfur, wet dirt, old burned wood. Eddie whispered, "Site 2 is close." My phone vibrated in my pocket. The screen said,
Mom.
I answered immediately.
Mom.
There was wind on the line.
Mom.
Then a woman began to cry. Not my mother. Nora. I froze. Gabe turned around. Hang up. The voice on the phone said, Nora, I'm so cold. My hands shook. My mother is home. It's making me watch you walk in. Gabe grabbed the phone from my hand and powered it off. I shouted, "What are you doing?" "Saving you." That was my mother. No, he shoved the phone back into my jacket. That was the woods learning your mother's voice. I wanted to curse at him. But then, from deep among the trees, my father called my name. Nora. I stopped breathing. Gabe gripped my shoulder. Do not turn around. My father called again. Nora, my girl. Tears filled my eyes. I had not heard anyone call me that in 19 years. Nora, I'm here. I whispered, Dad. Gabe squeezed my shoulder harder. If you turn, you will see exactly what you want to see, and then you will follow it. Eddie lifted the infrared camera toward the trees behind us. He switched on the light. The woods were empty. But on the camera screen, between two trunks, a figure stood completely still. Tall, thin, head tilted slightly to one side. No face. Eddie stepped back and tripped over a root. The figure vanished from the screen. The radio clicked on. A man's voice said clearly, "Fam residence." I collapsed to my knees. Site 2 was not frightening in the way people expect. There was no iron gate, no abandoned hospital, no ruined walls covered in vines like something from a movie. It was only a shallow clearing in the woods where the trees grew thinner. In the center were a few stones arranged too neatly to be natural, half buried in leaves and moss. One low section looked like the mouth of a cellar almost filled with dirt. Eddie set up his tripod. Gabe knelt and brushed leaves away from the stone. I stood several steps back and looked around. The sulfur smell was strong enough to make me nauseous. "What is this?" I asked. Gabe did not look up. "Some say an old house foundation." Some say a storage cellar. Some say the entrance to a mental hospital that never existed. And what do you think? I think it's a mouth. Eddie switched on a recorder. Session begins. October 21st. Site 2. Present. Eddie Callahan, Gabriel Miller, Nora Vu. The radio was silent. The wind was silent. The forest was silent. Eddie spoke loudly. If anyone is here, we can hear you. What do you need? Nothing. Are you the one who spoke through the radio? A single leaf fell onto the stone. Eddie looked at me. Do you want to ask? I did not, but my mouth opened anyway. Dad. No answer. I stepped closer. Dad, if it's you, say something only I would know. The clearing seemed to deepen. Then the radio crackled. A man's voice, very far away, said, Nora used to hide candy in the blue pencil case. I started crying. No one knew that except my father. When I was little, my mother banned candy because I had cavities. My father secretly bought me milk candies and told me to hide them in a blue pencil case under my bed. I took another step. Gabe caught my wrist. Don't. Pulled away. That is my father. No, Gabe's voice shook. That is what ate your father's memories. I stared at him. What do you know? Gabe's face went white. I know because it knows my brother's memories too. Eddie went silent. Your brother? I asked. Gabe swallowed. Billy. He disappeared in 1999. We came here to play a dare game. He heard our mother calling him. Our mother was home, but Billy still ran after the voice. I could not hold him. Did you tell the police? I told them. They said I was a scared kid who remembered it wrong. He looked down at the stone. 3 days later, Billy called me. He said he was trapped under the house. Our house did not have a basement. Eddie whispered, Gabe. Gabe did not look at him. For 27 years, I have come back here. Every time it calls, every time it asks me to open the door. What door? I asked. Gabe pointed down at the stone. That one. At that moment, Eddie's recorder screamed. Not feedback. It sounded like dozens of people inhaling at the same time. Then every device lit up. The walkie-talkie, the camera, my phone, even though it had been powered off, the digital watch on Eddie's wrist. All of them spoke the same sentence in different voices. Let me out. A child, a woman, an old man, my father, Gabe's brother, my mother, my own voice. Let me out. The ground trembled under our feet. Dry leaves in the clearing began to spin in a circle. Gabe shouted, Back up! But Eddie had already dropped to his knees beside the stone, his eyes wide and empty. He whispered, I see my daughter. I did not know Eddie had a daughter. He put his hand on a flat, moss-covered stone. Emily? Gabe lunged to pull him away. Too late. The stone shifted. Not far. Only a few inches. but enough to reveal a black crack underneath. Cold air blew up from below. The rotten smell burst out, and from inside the crack came knocking. 3 knocks. Slow. Polite. Then my father's voice rose from beneath my feet. "Nora, open the door for me." I do not remember how we ran. I only remember Gabe dragging me through the trees, Eddie behind us clutching the camera to his chest. The woods no longer looked like woods. The same trunks repeated. The trail was gone. The farther the flashlight reached, the thicker the darkness became. We passed the same fallen tree 3 times. The 4th time, something had been carved into the trunk. "Do not let it know you can hear." I screamed. Eddie fell. The camera flew from his hands and landed face up. On the camera screen, I saw dozens of figures standing between the trees behind us. They were not chasing us. They were only watching. Every head tilted at the same angle. Gabe pulled Eddie up. "Move!" But Eddie froze. He stared into the trees, tears running down his face. "Emily!" I slapped him. "Your daughter is not here." He blinked, like someone waking from anesthesia. We ran again. Suddenly, headlights appeared ahead. The road. We burst out of the trees and fell onto the shoulder. I had never been so grateful to hear traffic. But that relief lasted 3 seconds. Because the car parked beside the road was mine. The engine was running. The headlights were on. The driver's door was open. I remembered locking it. On the inside of the windshield were small handprints. Not outside. Inside. Eddie vomited onto the roadside. Gabe stepped back. I moved toward the car and looked through the glass. On the passenger seat was a bag of rice. Old, torn at one corner, grains scattered across the floor. The same kind my father had carried on the night he disappeared. A faded receipt was taped to it. The customer name had been blurred by water. Only one line of the address could still be read. Mount Misery Road. And beneath it, in my father's handwriting, "Nora, do not listen to the end." I held the rice bag with shaking hands. What end? My phone lit up, even though it was off. A new audio file appeared on the screen. Site 2, final. It began playing by itself. The forest. Breathing. Eddie shouting far away. Gabe calling my name. Then my father. "Nora, you have to understand. It does not take people with hands. It takes them with a call." I stood beside the car, unable to move. When I heard my mother, I came. When your mother heard me, she came. Gabe heard Billy. Eddie heard his daughter. You heard me. His voice broke. It does not need to leave the cellar. It only needs someone outside to open the door. I whispered, "Where are you?" In the file, my father was silent for a long time. Then he said, "I am not anywhere anymore." I began to cry. Then who is speaking? A long wave of static followed. Then my father's voice changed. It became many voices layered together. Anything that is called long enough learns how to call back. Then another voice entered the recording. My voice. Not me standing there. Another me, hoarse, terrified, crying in the dark. They're here. I dropped the phone. No. The file kept playing on the road. My voice said, "Help me." Eddie and Gabe stared at me. I stepped back. That is impossible. This was Eddie's file. It was recorded before I came here. My voice on the phone said, "Please." Gabe looked at me with an expression I will never forget. Not fear. Pity. I understood before the final sentence played. Let me out. That voice was not from someone already dead. It was mine. The recording Eddie sent me had not been created before the trip. It was created after. After I entered the woods. After I heard my father. After I reached Site 2. Mount Misery did not only hold sound. It sent sound backward. It released a cry for help into the past, to the exact person who would be hurt enough to come looking. My father was not the first person called. I was not the last. The phone on the road began knocking. From inside the trunk of my car. Eddie stepped back. Gabe whispered, "Nora." I stared at the trunk. The knocking continued. Knock. 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 Then my mother's voice came from inside. My daughter. I did not move. Gabe said, "Do not open it." My mother cried from the trunk. "Nora, I'm sorry. I'm trapped in here." I shook my head, tears running down my face. My mother is in Queens. The voice in the trunk said, "No, I followed you." I grabbed Eddie's spare phone and called my mother. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3 rings. She answered. "Nora?" I broke down. "Mom, where are you?" "At home. What's wrong?" I looked at the trunk. The thing inside was still crying. "Open it for me." I said into the phone, "Lock the door. Do not answer unknown calls. Do not open anything." My mother went silent. Then she said, "You hear me there, don't you?" I did not answer. She began to cry. "Nora, run." I turned to Gabe. "We have to go." But Eddie was no longer beside us. He was standing behind the car. His hand rested on the trunk. I screamed, "Eddie, don't." He looked at me. His eyes were empty. "Emily is afraid of the dark." Gabe rushed toward him. Eddie pressed the release. The trunk opened. My mother was not inside. Emily was not inside. No one was inside. Only darkness. A darkness so deep the headlights could not enter it. From inside the trunk, hundreds of hands reached out. They were not rotten hands. They were ordinary hands. Adults, children, old people, pale as if soaked in cold water for too long. They grabbed Eddie. He only had time to say, "Emily." Then they pulled him in. The trunk slammed shut. Silence. 1 second later, my car died. The headlights went out. The woods became black. Gabe and I stood on the side of the road, unable to speak. Then Eddie's voice came from the walkie-talkie on the ground. Very far away. Very small. "They're here." Gabe closed his eyes. "Run." We ran until we reached a gas station. I do not remember the distance. I do not remember how many times I fell. I do not remember how many roads Gabe pulled me across. I only remember seeing the white lights of the gas station and crying like a child. The police arrived 20 minutes later. We told them a version they could believe. Eddie had gone missing in the woods. We panicked. My car was left near a trail entrance. They found the car the next morning. The trunk was empty. No strange fingerprints. No blood. No rice bag. No receipt. Only one thing remained. On the inside of the windshield, there were 5 small handprints. The police asked if a child had ever been inside my car. I said no. They asked Gabe if he knew where Eddie might have gone. Gabe said no. They asked why 3 adults had gone into the woods near dusk to record sounds. No one had an answer that made sense. 3 days later, they stopped searching for Eddie. People said he might have run away, that he might have fallen into a hidden hole, that he might have invented the story for attention. I knew where he was. Not in the woods. Not under the stone. In the call. I went back to Queens. My mother held me for a long time. She did not ask questions. She did not scold me. She did not cry loudly. She only held me. That night, she told me the rest. After my father disappeared in 2006, she received a cassette tape in the mail. No return address. On the tape was my father's voice. He said he was trapped. He begged her to come open the door. So she went. Alone. She went to Mount Misery near midnight with a flashlight and a kitchen knife. She heard my father calling from the woods. She followed. She reached an old stone foundation. She saw a crack under the earth. From below, my father said, "Lon, open it for me." She put her hands on the stone. She almost pulled it back. Then she heard me crying. My 12-year-old voice. From underneath. "Mom, I'm scared." She stopped. Because that night, I was asleep at my aunt's house. I could not be under the ground. My mother understood. If she opened that door, it would not give my father back. It would only take her too. So she ran. And from that day on, she never listened to anything connected to Mount Misery again. I asked her, "Do you think Dad hates you?" She looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "If it was still your father, he would have wanted me to run." I do not know if that made me feel better. Maybe it did. Maybe it did not. Because 1 week later, I received an email from Eddie. not from the account he had used before. A blank email with only one attachment. The file name was Nora, do not clean. I did not open it. I deleted it, then deleted it from the trash, then removed the hard drive and smashed it. That night, my laptop turned on by itself. The screen was black. An audio window opened. No file name. No folder. Only a waveform moving across the screen. Heard Eddie. Ms. Vu. I pulled the plug. The laptop stayed on. Eddie said, "I found the door." I backed away. "Don't." He whispered, "It is not in Mount Misery." Covered my ears. But his voice still entered. It is inside every place where someone answers. Then another voice spoke. My father's. "Nora, I'm sorry." I cried, "Dad, you have to do one thing." "No. You have to tell the story." I shook my head. "No, I will not help it." Not help it. His voice trembled. Help the people who are about to hear. The laptop screen turned to white static. Inside the static, I saw the trees. Sight 2. Eddie standing in darkness. My father. A stone door half open. And then I saw myself on the other side. Not the self I was then. Another me, pale face, hollow eyes, both hands gripping the edge of the stone. She looked straight at me. Then she spoke in my voice. "Do not come save me." The screen went dark. Since then, I do not answer unknown calls. I do not open audio files from strangers. I do not go near West Hills. I do not look at maps of Mount Misery. But I know the story is not over. Because everyone who hears the call leaves a piece of themselves inside it. Eddie left his voice. Gabe left his brother. My mother left her husband. My father left me. And I left this recording. So if you are listening to this story on a rainy night, in a quiet room, with your headphones pressed close to your ears, you may think this is only a ghost story. I hope you do. I truly hope you do. Because if, in the next few days, you receive a call with no caller ID, if there is only wind on the other end, if someone you lost, someone you loved, or a voice you miss so much it hurts begins to speak and says they are trapped, please do not ask where they are. Do not say their name. Do not answer. And if that voice says, "They're here. Help me. Please. Let me out," hang up immediately. Because a cry for help from nowhere does not need you to believe. It only needs you to listen. And at Mount Misery, whatever has been heard, sooner or later, finds its way back.